vocatio, vocare, to call. The Church gives the stamp of vocation in the name of God when the bishop, seated with his mitre, calls forth the candidate, and he replies in the equivalent of ecce ad sum, behold, I am here. And he goes forth and is then placed in a succession which is outside time. The power of the upper chamber comes through the centuries through the bishop's hands, and he is made first of all deacon and then priest forever. That is the conclusion, however, of another invisible process which is mysterious. For that would not happen unless the candidate had early on, and even in childhood, note little people, even in childhood, received a hint, a nudge, I want you for myself. And should that happen, that child, that young man, should keep clear of what might make it more difficult. Beginnings check and consequences follow. Nowadays, those in some kind of role of formation in vocations will all agree that it's more easy to handle a young man, or for that matter a woman if it's a nun, who has not got contaminated by bad habits, big relationships, and so on. For the memory is more clear and more free to love Jesus alone. Nowadays, even at an early age, be careful young people, at an early age, things can come in which only 50 years ago would not be coming in. What the mind has seen, it has seen forever. Don't get addicted to stuff you don't need. Be free for Jesus. And then, and only then, is he able to get through. And by the way, don't think the devil doesn't know it. Oftentimes, at least until very recent times, there was that tendency to say to a young man, go and get some experience, go and get a degree, go and get a job, and let it mature. That's Latin for get lost. Because they won't come back, usually. The devil will make sure they won't come back. And many vocations have been lost because of human prudence. But then it doesn't stop, unfortunately. That same devil is very busy in places of formation. He is extremely interested in making sure that a seminary or a novitiate is dysfunctional, and if possible, excluding the best candidates. He'll let those who are working for him indirectly get through because they can be useful for him. But those who are in any way a threat to him, he'll make sure that he'll find a weak link somewhere in the formation process to make sure that he won't get through. If you don't believe me, listen and open your ears to those who have been through bad formation and have been bruised, wounded, and eventually abandoned a project by the 100 probably over the church. Now that means that the devil knows that there's something that we have, and the priesthood is the essence. Only yesterday actually I was talking to a travelling person, a young person, who wanted to know basically the big difference between us and Protestants. And I went to this point. Ours is divine. We have that divine power, which they don't, and the devil knows it. That power hinges on the apostolic succession and the priesthood. Now, a young man has a choice if he feels nudged and pulled. He has two ways. Either he can go to Christ on earth locally, who is the bishop, or he can go to a major superior, an abbot or a prior. And they both then will have their consequences in the future. Now, it's not quite as simple as it used to be, because those who go to the way of bishop and parish are now in Ireland obliged to go through only one line, Maynooth, because the bishops have decided, it seems, to send them all to Maynooth. That is already something which makes a few young people hesitate, so they may choose another way, that of an abbot or a prior. There are advantages in this case, but also disadvantages. The disadvantages are that you've got to be very careful where you stabilize yourself forever. It can work or not work. You're in an aquarium. But if you're lucky, it can have the support system and the equilibrium which the other in our day, notice, is in danger of not maintaining. Because a priest in a parish now is being obliged to do the work of about 5 priests of a few years ago, with a lot more work of administration and red tape. Therefore, the problem of being thinly spread and being sucked up in that very essence of his being, which makes of him a man of God. Because there's a big difference between a man of God and a functionary. And the functionaries are at risk, because if the man of God bit is in danger, they're easy prey when it comes to burnout, temptation, discouragement, and you know the consequences. Casualties, which a good community can avert. So I want to, for a moment, focus on that possibility, because it's my experience, because it's worth looking into for this reason. There is more than vocation than just a job or a career. There is this mystic bond with the Son of God, the vocation to be a contemplative, a friend of his heart. If one finds a community where that happens and is safeguarded, one is hugely protected. Moreover, it can actually work without what we see now all over the church, a great vocations drive to make the priesthood attractive, to push and pull by human means, when actually, if one looks around the planet, there are places where this just happens. Why? The Lord honors those who honor him. He wants saints. He wants those who are friends of his, who have time for him, who will praise him every day for long moments and have time to keep him company. You see actually the difference. So, within the global call of vocation, there are 2 ways forward. I'll make a little digression. There, one sees a pattern emerging over the last 50 years. I know 2 abbots who became abbots about the same time. One decided as soon as he became abbot to make a lot of changes, big changes, one after the other. Now, in that community, they are, from having been, a few years ago, about 50, about 9. The other, in that same period, decided a different policy. He was going to maintain the essence and just tweak the cosmetics. And moreover, he was going to be present to his community, he was going to teach them on a daily basis, and he was going to give them demanding teaching. Now they are not 9 but 90, and they have made a foundation, which is also a separate abbey by now. What has happened there? The Lord will guide young souls without any fuss or bother to a place where he'll have total access to their heart, and where praise and glory will just happen. Because there is a big difference. A young man, or for that matter, if one is a woman looking for a vocation in a convent, there are 3 factors which matter a lot. One is warmth. The warmth the candidate meets, as soon as that person enters, it can be felt. The answering of letters from the beginning, personally, immediately. The meeting, the listening, the warmth around, the affection, divine and human together, between the brethren or the sisters. It can be picked up quickly. The second, is there beauty? Beauty in worship attracts. It consoles the soul. It creates an atmosphere where one can be bathed in peace and serenity until one dies. It just works. Young people draw young people, and talent can be used. Another is, believe it or not, natural, physical beauty and peace. There are places on this planet that actually attract. I was ordained a deacon in the beginning of 1997. Friends came over from Ireland. It was midwinter. There was no heating, of course, in our church, but it was okay, it was in Italy. The person came out and said it's warmer outside than inside, but added this: it's the most beautiful place I've ever seen on earth. It just happened that our monastery in Italy was a beauty spot in an area preserved by the government in Tuscany. The Val d'Orcia is a gem, it's a paradise. So there was a harmony in the air, inside and outside, because we were young voices, and we created what people have referred to over the years as the most beautiful Mass of Paul VI on earth, facing the other way, in Latin, with incense, with young voices, fully sung in Gregorian chants, and it just worked, with incense every day. Creating what? A throne, where God was honoured. But the church too was a gem. And one young priest who entered in casually, as he came into the church, heard this in his heart: Questa è la mia casa. This is my home. He entered, and he's still with the brethren where they're gone to in France. There was a beauty in the air. But there is more. There is one thing that matters hugely if one enters, and this matters also in a seminary. Is there care for the soul? I remember when not sure what to do, I was back at home and things hadn't worked out in Kildebrot, and this letter came back from St. Antimo, and the prior said this: you have 2 ways ahead. Go to your local bishop, or come to us. But he added this: the advantages of coming to us is that you have, until you die, an atmosphere of prayer and praise which will give you une grande sérénité, a great serenity. Because no matter what is going on in the rest of the day, one is back to base, back to base, back to base, pulled by the ancient bell, still there since the Middle Ages, 2 of them actually, and always bathed in unchanging beauty and charm. Outside time, outside hurry, calm, with the angels in another atmosphere. It's a different mode of being. I just want to conclude. Pope Benedict warned one day, the great illness out there now in the priesthood especially is activism. And he said that it leads to hardening of the heart. The priest buzzing and tense, not able anymore just to sit before the king and let him be God. The mind full and in overdrive. I just finished with one little anecdote, because these are the bits that we remember. Our community was young, full of talent, bursting with energy, and it was okay as long as the founding prior was in charge. It's rather like what happened to the Beatles. They were okay as long as Brian Epstein was looking after them. Then they went a bit haywire. So too, without the wisdom of the years, things went this way. They couldn't keep the balance. It's rather like what happens in physics. In school, it was a boys' school. The church was just on the side of things because it wasn't really based on faith, but it was a good state school, a bit Oxfordian. And all the teachers were brilliant, somewhat eccentric, but brilliant. And they still had their war titles. Squadron Leader Fletcher, Major Goldthorpe, and Captain Tar. Captain Tar taught physics, and his lessons might be somewhat like this, talking about thermodynamics and the like. Make the parallel with regard to thermodynamics in the community. One day he said this, "Now, come on. Imagine you're sitting on the back of a lorry. Keep quiet, please. Sitting on the back of a lorry with frictionless trousers. Keep quiet, please. And suddenly the lorry takes off at high speed. Keep quiet, please. And what happens if suddenly it goes round a corner at high speed? Now, give me your answer, young man. What happens? You'll fall off, sir. Now, you'll fall off, exactly. Now, can you explain that in thermodynamics? Well, you're pushing it on a tangent of the circle. Yes, you're tangentially propelled. Now, can you explain that in more detail? Centrifugal. That's it, you've got it, laddie. Centrifugal force. Centrifugal force. Propelled towards the outside. And that's exactly what happened in our community, brethren. The activity took over. And when it came to community life, it was just too thinly spread. And it's happening all over the church. Centrifugal force. People can't sit still. They have to do things all the time. And quality relationship has become non-existent. So that when it comes to a problem, there's no one there to listen. They're all too busy. If only people knew how clever old Nick is. It has to be good holy things, anything to keep them moving, but it's all centrifugal force in which the outside has become the center of gravity.
that